Hello, welcome to The Child's View. I am Becky Roth, and these are my colleagues, Dr. Bernadette Towns and Sharon Brown. And today we are going to talk about friendship and specifically the benefits of friendship. So I'm going to refer to the Life magazine, and if you've ever checked out the Life magazines, they have some great topics, especially for child development and families.
Yeah.
This one happens to be on friendship. And many times we don't think friendship's important, but it is extremely important for a lot of reasons, which we're going to cover. So, according to Richard Jerome, friendships are unlike family relationships. So, with your family, you are kind of born into it. Mm-hmm. With friends, we enter into them voluntarily, and we tend to choose friends that we have things in common with. So it's a choice. It's not something that we have to do. It's something that we have decided benefits us or we enjoy. So according to Paul Schwartz, he says that children with good friends have higher self-esteem, act more socially, can cope with life stresses and transitions, and are less victimized by their peers. So friends act as a support system, a support group. And that's true of very young children. So it doesn't matter whether we're talking about preschool children or elderly. We all need friends. They sustain us, and they offer very specific benefits. The Mayo Clinic says that friendships enrich adults' lives. They improve health, increase a sense of belonging, boost happiness, again, decrease stress, help with transitions and challenges in life, and inspire self-confidence. So now that we know how valuable it is to children and adults, what are your experiences with friendships?
While you were reading that, I started thinking about good friends, because it says good friends. And I really just think that it's important to also make sure that you don't have toxic friends.
Right.
And that you have people who are helping develop your self-esteem, who are not competing with you and putting you down.
Exactly.
It's really important to have healthy friendships. And because a bad friend could really tear you down and could really make life more difficult.
Right.
So
lead you down the wrong path.
Yeah. And I always tell my students, birds of a feather flock together. You don't see flamingos and crows on the same wire. So if you look to the left and you look to the right and you see a crow, you a crow. If you look to the left, if you look to the right, you see a flamingo, you a flamingo. And so think about who are the people that you're choosing. See, because you can't choose family, but you can choose friends. Who are you choosing to keep around you? And what are they doing? And where are they headed? And what morals and values are they pouring into you? And are they living by? Because that's going to influence you. We know, just like you said, there's a power of influence when you have a friend, and you let that person influence you in ways that strangers can't.
Yeah, because you tend to build this deep connection with them. And so, we have to be careful about those we choose. And as parents and as teachers, it's really important that we help children develop those skills to decide on who is a good friend and maybe who is not a good friend.
And that friendship starts, where they start selecting that friend at about 3. At about
very
3.
Early.
And by 4, they are preferring a certain set. I don't think lack of another word, their
peer group or by gender.
Sometimes
it's gender based.
Well, it's more of a clique. They start to have a clique with the same people, and at 4 and 5, when that same person isn't there, they're really devastated for the day. And so it's at that point that as a teacher or a parent, even of a 4-year-old, that you are talking to them about the friends and about how you can make other friends as opposed to being just with one.
And there's pro-social skills that they need to develop friends and keep friends. Being kind, asking to join the play group, asking to share materials, not just taking things, because those skills are going to lead them into adulthood. And the other thing about our role as adults is that that friendship is vital to them, to their healthy growth and development, but also those children that are not valued, not brought into the group, that are neglected or rejected, they have lifelong issues. You think about some of our school violence situations. Those are typically the kids that have been left out,
Right.
that have been
Right.
neglected, and those kids that are even openly rejected, those are the ones with a really serious problem. So we have to help manage it. We have to help facilitate that development.
And how to make friends. You know, oftentimes when we think about social skills, a lot of the times when I'm talking to my students, they don't think about the fact of eye contact.
Right.
That's an actual social skill that you just learned. You don't remember learning it though.
Right.
So, but
Through
now you're an
interaction.
adult and you want a child to get eye contact with another child, but you're not really thinking that this is an actual skill. This is a social skill.
We also have to keep into consideration too. That's a cultural
Yes.
basis too, because
It depends on the culture.
it depends on the
Yes,
culture whether or
true.
not that is appropriate or not.
Right.
Right. Well, and using books, right? We can talk about that through
Yes.
books. Our puppets, we introduce them through puppetry. I used to use puppets with my toddlers. You know, if you want, if you want to see the puppet, I would use a cone puppet. So they would, the kind that kind of come out of the cone.
Pop up, yeah.
Yeah, and if you grabbed at him, you scared him. And they would be like, oh. And so, I remember the first day I did it, we literally, I think, sat there for a couple of hours. Some left and came back, but by the end they were all like, oh, these are my 2-year-olds.
Gentle words. Nice.
Yeah,
Gentle,
but
gentle.
just, children aren't born knowing how to be gentle.
Right.
Or how to be
Right.
kind. That's what we teach them.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
yeah.
I just at 4 and 5, I really like the fact that they are really starting to form those little groups, and I think the funniest thing ever, and it really probably isn't to them, it's not funny, but the best way to get back at somebody if they've hurt you is to say, you're not my friend. At 4, that's just like this.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
here's the kicker. You can't come to my birthday.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny how they learn those tactics.
Yes.
At 4 and 5. And sometimes those same tactics, even though they're elevated to a different level,
Yeah.
stay in place. If
Don't
nip
they're
in the
not
bud.
helped to understand how
Right.
to nurture and to protect friendships.
Right. Well, and on the flip side, the other child that was angry and unkind, there's appropriate ways to say, I didn't like that you said that to me. Not, you're
Right.
not my friend and you can't come to my birthday party. So we have to work with both children
Right.
and learning how to communicate and respect each other. And
Right.
so-
Yeah, and I think it's important for parents to understand that 2-year-olds have different type of friendships than 3-year-olds, than 4-year-olds, than
Right.
teenagers, and the friendships, of course, get deeper and deeper
Right. Or
as the
should.
children
Right.
grow. But so the expectation should be different as well.
Right.
You're not going to expect 2-year-olds to become best friends.
Right.
No.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
Right. Well, they're friends because of proximity, because you bring them to the same child
To the
development center.
play group
right,
or
or
the-
the play group or whatever. So they're friends because you bring them together. As they get older, they start to say, "Can I go to Joey's house? Can I go to the
Right.
birthday party?" And then again, it gets even deeper, and it usually tends to be that they start to prefer their own gender because they have a lot of
Right.
similarities.
Right.
But as they hit pre-adolescence and adolescence, those groups mix, and then of course we get into other kinds of relationships. So yeah, but those skills to develop them are so important, and we have to stay on top of that as parents and teachers.
Yeah.
So
And I was thinking about, you were saying, so proximity is a social skill, keeping your private space,
Right,
eye contact depending on the culture.
Right.
Other things are actually using a person's name
yep.
when you're talking to them so that they know that you're talking to them. I've seen children at preschools they just walk on
Hey,
up and
you.
just start talking,
Yeah.
and then nobody's listening to the
Right,
child,
right.
and the child sometimes feels rejected, but it's
Right.
because they didn't get anyone's attention by
Right.
calling them by name.
Right.
Right. And they're a little bit egocentric, so they just think I'm jumping in and you're thinking like what I'm thinking because they think everybody thinks what they think. Kind of,
Right.
they're in
Right.
that transition. It's developmental, right? And it's about brain development. And so sometimes we can see them do something and we think they're trying to be unkind or rude, and they're not. They're
Right.
just learning, or developmentally that's where they're at. And we need to say, hey, if you want to join the play group, say, Joey, Sarah, may I enter the play
Right.
group? Or get down on their level and ask them how they would do
Well,
this
and
differently.
so what you are covering right now is role modeling.
Yes.
And they have to have that adult role model
Right.
Yes.
in their life to show them how to be friends.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Which means the role model has to have friends.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's hard sometimes for adults if they didn't have friends when they were young.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, parents can model that. Teachers in the classroom. I
Right.
tell my students,
Exactly.
hey, children are watching you all the time.
Yes.
So how you interact tells them how to interact.
Agreed.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, great
a
points
lot
about
going
friendship.
on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, well, we might have to revisit that because there's a lot to talk about in terms of friendships.
Right.
So anyway, thank you for joining us, and we hope you join us next time on The Child's View.